up, people? Welcome back. Hopefully you guys are doing well, and today I'm going to be sharing a very, very special project with you. About a year and a half or so ago, I started filming a mini documentary about my cousin Jessica. Jessica was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer at a very young age, and when you first hear stage 4 cancer, I'd say most of the time you're not thinking very positively or in a good way. But unlike most people, Jessica had a different way of thinking, a different mindset, and was determined to not let this diagnosis determine her outcome. So today's film is all about her journey, what she went through to overcome stage 4 cancer, the way that she shifted her mindset into a better way of thinking, a more positive way, and just to be able to share her story. So if you stick around at the end of the film, I'll be talking a little bit about the making of this film and what went into it. But without further ado, I just want to say I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to watch this film. So enjoy. Thank you.
My name is Jessica, and one thing I'm grateful for would be my health right now. You hear you have stage 4 cancer, the first thing you think of is you're gonna die, It's like the world keeps moving around you, but you're at a standstill. Stage 4 cancer doesn't mean death anymore. We're lucky that medicine's come so far. Putting Eastern and Western medicine together, you realize there's so much hope. It was hard to stay positive, but if I ever started, if I was feeling down on myself, I snapped out of it real quick. I knew I couldn't have a pity party for myself because it was gonna get me nowhere. I started with going to watch the sunrise, and I realized how good it made me feel, so I would meditate there. And it was like my peace. It was like the best way to start the day instead of laying in my bed thinking or like scrolling through Facebook and Instagram and seeing everyone's lives going on where mine was at this crazy standstill. Meditation is amazing. If you can do 1 minute a day, you're better off than doing nothing a day. In my head, I thought to myself, it's like I have a bad flu. I need to just get through this. And I just envisioned myself healthy in the end and ringing the bell and getting through it and looking back on this like, oh my God, I can't believe I went through that, And it's just a chapter of my life. And then there would be a next chapter and then another chapter after that. And I knew what I wanted and I knew I had a goal and I knew I was gonna get there. I changed everything, my whole life. I started doing the alkaline diet. I took a lot of turmeric and I was eating fresh garlic all the time and just lots of herbs. I took Rick Simpson oil, which is a very high, potent dose of THC. When I was diagnosed, I ordered a ton of books and I just started reading and they just opened my eyes to a whole nother world of medicine. I ate edibles often, but I knew there had to be better options. I decided to use the stuff that I use in my everyday life in my edibles, and it's beneficial in a lot of ways, not just, you're gonna get high. The stuff that's in them, like the blue spirulina and the butterfly pea powder, the mushroom mocha powders, they're all beneficial to the body. The whole process of what it takes to make that little square, I love every single part of it. I'm proud I'm doing what I love. I hope it makes me successful in the end, and I'm proud I've gotten through a really rough part of life. I really just don't doubt myself anymore. I know I'm strong, and I really understand. God, you're gonna cry. Here we go. That really, like, when you put your mind to things, you really can get whatever you want in life. Whether it be healing from cancer, being successful in whatever your career may be, that it's really just like having a passion and determination. And I'm really proud that I proved to people that are in my circle that you can really get through anything you really want to, It just takes a lot of determination. It's hard work. It's like a full-time job, but it's worth it.
So if you're still here, thank you for watching, and hopefully you enjoyed that film. Hopefully you had a moment of realization and maybe a change of perspective. For me personally, as I was making this film, I definitely felt a change in perspective. I'm a very healthy person, and health isn't something that I really think about very often besides, my daily working out and eating, but my general health is something I don't think about. So being able to reflect on that and realize that being healthy is something to be extremely grateful for was something that really affected me and something that I took away from this project. And it is something that I feel everyone should be very grateful for, is their health at this current moment in time. Before we dive into a little breakdown of this project, one of the most important aspects of creating a film revolves around the music. Thanks to MusicBed, I was able to find music that perfectly captures the emotion I was trying to employ through the film. Click the link in the description to check out my custom-made playlist on MusicBed featuring some of my favorite artists and songs. So as we dive into the breakdown of this film, the main gist of what I want to talk about, especially as a DP, is sometimes you're going to work on a project that might not be the most cinematically beautiful or the most cinematically polished, but the story is the absolute main factor of the project. It is the number one reason that you're creating this project. And that's something that I want to talk about today, because this project I created about a year and a half or so ago. And about a year and a half ago, I didn't really know what I was doing too much compared to what I know now. My skill level back then is nothing compared to where it is now, cinematography-wise, technically-wise, even theory-wise, or just experience-wise. I didn't know as much as I did now, so that translated into the way that the film looks. And this was part of the reason why it took me so long to actually release this project. I was very fearful of the fact that the look of this project wouldn't really compare to the work that I've been putting out recently, thus wouldn't represent me as a cinematographer as well. And that is a extremely selfish way of looking at this, and it is a very ego-driven way of thinking about this. And it took me a while to kind of overcome this, and I'm being totally honest and transparent that this was something that I really had to fight, because I would have shot this way differently if I were to do it at this current moment. But I didn't. I shot it a year and a half ago, when this story was raw, when this story was real, and we were in that moment. And it wasn't until I kind of got over the fear of that and rewatched it with a new light and kind of just looked at it like, okay, this is a story about someone I love dearly, and this is a story about them telling their story, how they overcame one of the hardest times in their life. How am I going to suppress this story because of an ego thought of this isn't how I want it to look per se? Even though, granted, it is still, I think, pretty beautiful. I think it's shot really well given my knowledge and experience. I think there's moments where it's shot beautifully. I also think there's a lot of techniques that I employed back then that I would have done now, especially the use of backlight or the use of shooting on the shadow side and the use of compositions. I think there are a lot of things that I did really, really well. But to get back to the point, there's no reason that my ego and my thought process should be the reason to suppress this film. This film is specifically for my cousin telling her story and to be able to share with the world how she overcame something. And the possibility of this impacting another person's life is extremely important, and it is easily doable with just a simple fact of a couple of the things that she shared with the mindset, and how she used meditation to help clear her mind and not going on social media, using food as a key source of nutrition to help fuel her body. All of these different things are reasons that she is now cancer-free, and the story was the main reason I had to let go of my ego. The story is this film. Everything about this film is driven by story, her story, and how she overcame the darkest time in her life. So moving on now, let's talk a little bit technical. You'll notice that within this film, there are two different kitchen scenes. The first when she is cooking food, and the second when she's baking those edibles. So you'll notice that both of those scenes are in the same exact location, but have vastly unique styles and appearances. Looking at the first kitchen scene here, cooking the food, I had very minimal experience. I had very limited equipment, but what we did have was just a few lights and just the determination to kind of create something. But what we did have was a Nanlite Forza 300, and that was our main hard light source that you'll notice in a lot of these scenes. What we did was stick it out of the window and dependent on where the scene was taking place, by the sink or stove or by that back counter by the wall. So having to move those lights back and forth wasn't ideal, but it's what we had at the time and we made it work. And other than the hard light source that we used a floating Nanlite Pavo tube to either create a edge light, a backlight, or just to create a little bit more fill in her face. But that's pretty much it for that entire kitchen scene. We used a little bit of haze to create some of those light rays, but those two lights are all that we use to create that kind of naturalism look. Moving on to the second kitchen scene, you'll notice that this one is slightly more polished. It has a more high key look and it's almost slightly commercial in a way. Now, we didn't use a ton more light than we used in the first one, but we used it in a way that created a little bit more shape within the image instead of it being very flat. So we took a Nanlite Forza 500 with a Fresnel, put it in the other room inside the house, and shined it against the back wall, hence creating this kind of light beam or light ray across the back wall. The next thing we did was take a Nanlite Pavo tube with the egg crates. Overhead, just create a nice soft top light. The egg crate is for the reduced spill on the back wall to keep it more directional. The last light that we used was a Nanlite mix panel. Each of the 3 lights set to 5600 Kelvin. The mix panel was bounced into the ceiling in the direction of the Forza 500 just to create a little bit more ambient light inside of the room. So those are the 3 lights that we pretty much used for that scenario. And even though it is only one more light, we used it in a way to create a little bit more shape and contrast and a little bit more interest. So depending on the angle, we did shift the lights a little bit on how we were composing the image, but those were the 3 lights that we used. And comparing the two, you'll notice that one is vastly different than the other. Not saying one is better than the other, but that was another reason why I was kind of holding back on this film, because it had so many different distinct looks and I was kind of torn between, is this okay? Is this right? But again, I let go of that and I just said, this story needs to go out. People need to hear her story. And I'm very proud of this film, regardless of my thoughts and regardless of my reasons for maybe wanting to do things differently. But that's not an excuse to hold a film back. And that's kind of my advice to any young filmmaker, anyone out there that is creating a passion project or mini doc or any project in general. If you feel that the story has something tangible, you feel the story is something valuable, regardless of the cinematography, or regardless of whatever it is, and you might be not proud of 1 or 2 things, release the project. Let people experience that story. Let people feel something through the story, and let your ego go about it not looking a certain way or not sounding a certain way. 9 times out of 10, story is always going to take precedent over anything else. So the last thing I want to mention about this film is editing. Whenever I do passion projects or mini documentaries or things that I'm super passionate about that are mine, I always take on the editing because I still have a passion for editing, and I feel that shooting is one part of the story, but editing is a whole different part of the story. And for me, what I find in a lot of videos or films that I watch of people that make or send me is that their films tend to be very flat. Whether it's a 3-minute long mini doc or 4 minutes or 2 minutes, there really is no arc. It is very visual based. It's more driven by cinematography. How beautiful can this look? But the story deserves a lot more than just a flat timeline. For me, editing this project was really dependent on her timeline and her story. You'll notice that in the beginning of the film, it was very, very dark, almost immediately really dark, when she talks about having stage 4 cancer and you think you're gonna die. You can't really get much darker than that. And that was in the beginning of her journey. So in the middle of the film, you'll notice that the music changes instantly. It went from this somber kind of ambient music to this upbeat jazz funk type beat. And the reason I did this was because as soon as we cut to the kitchen where she's cooking, she starts to realize how she can help cure herself, help aid her body in a healthy way. And that has to do with cooking the right food, eating the right things, researching, reading, doing all of these things to help better herself and not just rely on doctors. This was a very pivotal point in the story and her life. The last thing I want to mention is something that I think is really important for everyone to hear, including myself. Jessica had one of the darkest moments in her entire life, and through her journey, she ended up finding a passion that ended up becoming a business for her. She did a lot of research into medical marijuana and Rick Simpson oil and all of the different things that are natural that helped her cure cancer. She created a business called Ayana Edibles, and essentially she wanted to create a healthy alternative to the edibles that are usually sold like Nerds Rope or candy bars, but these are very healthy edibles with all of the different ingredients that she uses on a daily basis. So if you want to follow Jessica and her journey and support her and her new business, click the link in the description following her Instagram, Ayana Edibles. So that's it for today's video. Hopefully you guys found some value in today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed this film. Hopefully it might have changed your perspective a little bit and made you a little bit more grateful about your life and what you have. If you're in the process of creating a passion project, a mini doc, a commercial, a spec, whatever it is, release it to the world. Be creative, have fun, be truthful, be honest. Share it with me. I'd love to watch all of your films. If you look in the description below, you'll see a link to my Discord server where we have a bunch of filmmakers all over the world that share their work, provide feedback, and it's just a great way to collaborate with new people and meet new people. Feel free to join with clicking that link below, share your work, and looking forward to watching it. And as always, hit that subscribe button, like button, comment. Let me know what you think. But thank you guys as always. Have a great day. Peace out.